scripture on the threshold and the book rolled. If one was reading a book of scripture from the threshold and the book rolled from his hand, he may roll it to himself. If he was reading on top of the roof and the book rolled from his hand, as long as it has not yet reached within 10 tefachim of the ground, he may roll it to himself. Once it reached 10 tefachim, he should turn it over on his writing. The Yehuda says even if it is only removed from the ground by the width of a needle, he may roll it to himself. Reb Shimon says even on the very ground he may roll it to himself, for no biblically prohibited matter may stand in the way of Holy Scripture. A ledge which is in front of a window, one may put onto it and take from it onto the Sabbath. A person may stand in a private domain and move objects in a public domain, or in a public domain and move objects in a private domain, provided he does not take them beyond 4 amos. A person may not stand in a private domain and urinate in a public domain, or in a public domain and urinate in a private domain. Similarly, he may not expectorate. Rabbi Yehuda says even when one's saliva has become detached in his mouth, he may not walk 4 amos until he expectorates. Okay.
Okay. Um, Lo yamod adam b'shus hayachid, guy standing inside his private property, v'yishte b'shus harabim, and he sees that there's some water in the rishus harabim, so he wants to grab some water from the rishus harabim to drink. Um, and same thing goes if he's standing in the rishus harabim, v'yishte b'shus hayachid. He also cannot do that. Now this we just had a couple of Mishnahs ago. We had a guy leaning over and moving stuff inside the Rosh Yachid, and they said that is
Right.
okay as long as he doesn't need them on his side. He's allowed to move them along as long as he doesn't move things more than Dalit Amas. The drinking, they're a little more concerned about because the drinking, it's very easy to sort of relax and sort of bring the cup that you
Right.
had under the stream and bring it back to you where you're standing. So what did they say? What's your eitzah over here? Elim kain hichnis rosha v'rubo lamakom shehu shoseh. So what you got to do is actually lean your whole body, the majority of your body into that location. So if you're in the Rosh Hashanah, stick your whole body through the window and drink in that place so that you're not possibly going to make a mistake of bringing the water out. V'chein begas. Okay, so this little two-word statement over here in the Mishnah yeah, and it's the same thing inside a wine press. Now, what's it talking about? It's got nothing to do with Shabbos. It's all about masros, chumas and masros. When wine is in the vat, if somebody before it's been mastered, um,
Right.
you're allowed to take a sip of it inside the vat because that's considered achilas ashtias arai. It's shtias keva, and you're allowed to do that with something that hasn't yet been mastered. But as soon as you take it out of the vat, now this is considered wine, and you've got to take Jameson Masters before you're allowed to drink from it. So that's
Right.
that's where the wine is complete, is in the vat. As soon as you take it out, now it's finished. Okay, so that's what we're saying is that if a person wants to take a drink from the vat, he's not allowed to stick his hand into the vat and sort of gently lean over it and sip it because next thing he's going to take it out of the vat and sip from it over here, and then it's going to be chayav Shabbos and Masros. So if you want to have a chance, just to taste the thing from the vat, you have to lean your whole body over the vat and make sure that you're not going to take yourself out before you drink. Okay.
Okay. Good.
Olet Adam min hamazchila lemata mi'asrat vachim. So um, uh, so you've got, let's say you've got a drain pipe, and personally I can't imagine doing this, but that's because we modern people are kind of Easternism. But let's say you have a situation where where it's raining and a person is thirsty and he wants to drink, and look, there's a nice stream of water coming from this nice clean gutter. Okay, and so he's in the Rishus Harabim, and he wants to catch this water that's been coming out of Rosh Yachid. So if he catches it closer than 10 tefachim to the ground, he's fine because below 10 tefachim, he's in the Rosh Hashanah. The water's in the Rosh Hashanah. Take it to your mouth, no problem, right? It's not going to be more than Dalit Amas
Right.
from where you're catching it to your mouth, and that's 100% fine. Um, Umin hatzinor mikol makom shoseh. Um, so the distinction over here that we make between what I had translated as a gutter and a spout is nothing to do with the nature of the object of the drainage of how, but it's got to do with how they're typically made and how close to the Rishus HaYachid they come out. Because
Mhm.
what we first brought was the most obvious cases where it's close to the ground, and there it's definitely part of the Rosh Hashanah. But what we're really looking at over here is how close is it to the Rosh Hashanah, and because that's the real problem. If you stick if you've got a very short pipe coming out of the gutter, and you catch the water from that pipe just as it's coming out of the gutter, then that's within 3 tvachim of the Rosh Hashanah is still Rosh Hashanah. So if you catch it over there and bring it into the Rosh Hashanah, you're going to be chayav. On the other hand, if you catch it close to the ground, as we just said, within 10 tefachim of the Rosh Hashanah, that's for sure Rosh Hashanah. So what do you have in the middle is makom patur. It's not big enough to be a caramelis. All you're doing is you're sticking out your hand and catching it. So all you're doing is so that's actually makom patur, and that's also allowed. So you got to just
I'm
make
sorry,
sure
what is it? What is it called? I'm sorry, you said it's called something.
makom patur.
Okay, but okay.
Okay, so it's an exempt ground. It's neutral territory,
Right.
and the Makom Patur has the halacha that you're allowed to take from Rosh Hashanah and put it there, and you're allowed to take it from there and put it into Rosh Hashanah. So that can be a way station if you put it down and move it across. Okay, so your hand would also function as that. Um, and as the so what we're talking about over here is if the gutter is far away from the actual Rosh Hashanah, if the spout from the coming out from the gutter is more than 3 tvachim away from the Rosh Hashanah, then you can drink from it anyway. The only problem we have is if the spout is too close to the Rosh Hashanah, then we insist no, you must catch it below because you might make the mistake of putting your hand too close to the gutter and then you're taking it right out of the Rosh Hashanah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Bor b'Shus Rabim. You've got a cistern in that's in the middle of the Rosh Hashanah, but there's water inside it, and somebody wants to take water out of it. Well, it's a problem is that because the bor itself is a Rosh Hashanah, and taking it out is going to be Rosh Hashanah, so you got a problem. And the basically the sand that's built up around the bor is 10 tvachim high, so it's clearly a separate rishus. Um, so you would not be allowed to take out water from the Rosh Hashanah because that's a Rosh Hashanah. But let's say you've got a window that's on top of this, that's on top of, basically you can imagine it that he's got a sort of a wooden jet going out and a pulley system and a bucket that goes down into the bore, right?
Right.
So he lowers the bucket into the bore and yank, 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 pulls it up, and now he's got a bucket and he can pull that inside. And that is actually allowed. Why? Because the bor is a Rosh Yachid, and you've got a wall that's 10 tefachim high, and the 10 tefachim is as high as the Rosh Hashanah goes.
Also, right.
So as soon as it breaks, it comes out of the Rosh Hashanah, it's already outside of the Rosh Hashanah. So you can carry on lifting it up higher and until it gets to his
Look
place,
at
and then he can put it in. Okay, so that's fine. Um, if the wall is lower though, because then as soon as it comes out of the wall, then it's entering the Rosh Hashanah and you have a problem there. Yeah. Ashpa is now garbage pile. Rishus Harabim gavoa asra tvachim. So the garbage pile's in the Rishus Harabim, but it's higher than 10 tvachim. So the top of the pile is higher than 10 tvachim. That makes the garbage pile again a Rishus Yachid. Chalon she'al gaba shofchin lasocha mayim b'Shabbos. You could take the water and pour it out of your window onto that garbage pile, because the garbage pile is above 10 tvachim. Okay, and okay, so the water will spill down afterwards. That's not your problem. The place that you're putting the water is still Rishus Yachid, and this is okay, assuming it's your Rishus Yachid. Um, if it's somebody else's, then you've got a problem of Eruvin. But let's just say that it's your own garbage pile. There's Oh, by the way, there's another little wrinkle in this that we bring is that if it's a public garbage pile, that's okay.
Right.
because it's typically not removed on Shabbos. But if it's a private garbage pile, then sometimes people come, the owner might take stuff up and out, and the level will drop.
Lower. Right.
And then you're not allowed. Then as soon as it gets down to nine tvachim, then it's now part of the Rosh Hashanah again, and you've got a problem. So you wouldn't be allowed to empty into that. Okay. Ches. Ilan shehu meisei chala aretz. You've got a nice big tree. And actually there's a tree just like this near Neve Michael. Uh,
Mm.
in the field in Neve Michael is this huge tree with these big branches that come down and make basically a big umbrella all the way around, and the branches actually reach the ground. Okay, so now we're looking at this tree as a rishus. Do these branches now make it mutar to carry all the way underneath this tree on Shabbos because it's got mechitzas basically? Okay, im ein nofo gavoa min haaretz shloshet tefachim metaltalin tachtav. Then if the branches do not reach are closer than 3 tefachim to the ground, then it's called lavud.
Right.
It's okay, but with a strong with a caution that this is only when the branches have been fixed in place. Because if a wind comes and blows them, that's not called a mechitza. If they can move in the wind, you can't call that you can't call that a mechitza.
Right.
Yes, just like with a sukkah. If your sukkah walls move, that's not considered a wall.
Right. Right.
Okay. Shorashav gavohin mina aretz shlosha tvachim. If its roots project above the ground more than 3 tvachim, you're not allowed to sit on them because we made a gezerah on trees that you're not allowed to use them above 3 tvachim because you might climb them, break branches, things like that. Hadeles shiba muktzeh, context switch. You've got a wood pile and there's an entryway to the wood pile, and somebody has improvised a doorway made out of chadakim shebechpitza or machatzalos, chadakim, which is like a woven thing of thorns that you use to block up the doorway, or reed mats. Ein noalin bahin. You cannot use them to block up the doorway on Shabbos because it doesn't look like an actual door. It's like you're adding to the building. So this is now actually a question in Shabbos, not in Eruvin.
Yeah.
But since we're talking about completing the fence, we mentioned it over here. Unless they are elim ken gavoin min haaretz, unless they are elevated from the ground a little bit. So let's say they're suspended by some kind of a string, um, then it doesn't look like bone anymore. Okay, and yeah,
Okay.
that's it. That's
Okay. Um, okay. We have Zion Chet.
yeah.
What is its quantity? When there are numerous foods for 2 meals or all of them. When there are few, the volume of a dried fig is in the case of transferring on the Sabbath for each and every one. Yossi said, to what do these words apply? To the installation of the Erev, but for the remembrance of the Erev, any amount, any amount. For they only required an Erev in courtyards and not to let children forget. Any food may be used to make an Erev or a shituf except water or salt. These are the words of Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Yeshua says, a loaf is an Erev. Even if it is baked from a saw, but it is broken, it may not be used for an Erev. A loaf worth an Isser, but which is whole, may be used for an Erev. A person may give a ma'ad to a goroso or to a
That's
baker in
it. We're
order.
done.
Oh,
That's three.
did I skip one?
No, they're just the short
Um,
ones.
yeah, I thought I skipped one. Okay, I still have to do tests though.
Oh, you didn't do tests?
I did do tests. Yeah, okay, was sure. All right, I did.
Okay.
Shh, losing it already. Okay.
Okay. Shabbos. Yud Tes Gimel.
We may bathe the infant prior to the circumcision and following the circumcision, and we may sprinkle water upon him by hand, but not with a utensil. But Elazar ben Azariah says we may bathe the infant on the third day following the circumcision when it occurs on Shabbos, as it is said, and it came to pass on the third day when they were in pain. A questionable one or an androgen we may not violate the Sabbath on his behalf. Rabbi Yehuda says, whoever permits it in the case of an androgen. One who had two infants, one to circumcise after Shabbos and one to circumcise after, and he forgot to circumcise the one who was to be circumcised after Shabbos on the Shabbos, he is liable. If he had one to circumcise before Shabbos and one to circumcise on Shabbos, and he forgot to circumcise the one who was to be circumcised before Shabbos on the Shabbos, Rabbi Eliezer declares him liable for a sin offering, but Rabbi Yeshua exempts him. An infant may be circumcised either on the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, or 12th day, not earlier than not later. How is this? In the normal course, he is circumcised on the 8th. If he was born at twilight, he is circumcised on the 9th. If he was born at twilight on the eve of the Shabbos, he is circumcised on the 10th. If a festival falls after the Shabbos, he is circumcised on the 11th. In the case of the two festival days of Rosh Hashanah, he is circumcised on the 12th. At sick infant, we made a circumcision. Oh, that's it. You know? No.
Oh, yeah,
Sick,
sick infant, yeah.
sick infant, we will not circumcise him until he recovers.
Okay.
Okay. Sheni. Base Dalit. Maisa Sheni vetches must be eaten while immature and may be taken into Yerushalayim and may be taken out again. If they become unclean, Reb Tarfon says they should be divided among pieces of dough, but the sages say they must be redeemed in the Truma. And of Truma, Beis Shammai says they must be soaked and rubbed in a state of cleanliness, but may be fed in a state of uncleanliness. Reb Hillel says they must be soaked in a state of cleanliness and may be rubbed and fed in a state of uncleanliness. Shammai says they must be eaten dry, and Reb Kiva says whatever is done with them may be done in a state of uncleanliness. If chulin money and Maisa Sheni money were scattered, whatever he picked up belongs to Maisa Sheni until it is completed, and then the remainder is chulin. If he gathered them and took them by the handful according to the proportion, this is the general rule. What is picked up belongs to Maisa Sheni, and what has been mixed according to the proportion. If a seller of Maisa Sheni and one of chulin become mixed up, he must bring coins worth a seller and say, a seller of Maisa, whatever it may be, is redeemed by these coins. Select the better one of these and redeem them with it. Since they said silver may be redeemed with copper in case of necessity, not to leave it so, but to redeem them again with silver.
Okay.
And yeah, on to Nida. Okay, Nida. We have Dalad Vav. Concerning a woman who bleeds in labor within 80 days of a female birth, and any blood that she discharges is tahor until the child is born. But Reb Eliezer says there's a tameh. He said to Reb Eliezer, even if in a case where the Torah was stringent regarding blood discharge during a period of relief, it was lenient regarding the blood discharge by labor. And then in a case where the Torah was lenient regarding the blood discharge during labor of relief, it is not logical that we must be lenient regarding the blood discharge in labor. Reb Eliezer replied, it is sufficient for the derived law to be the same as the source law. From what tumah did the Torah spare her? It is from the tumah of Ziva, but she is still tameh as a nida. Throughout all the 11 days of potential ziva, a woman is presumed to be tahor. If she sat and did not examine herself, whether it was inadvertently, by mishap, or deliberately, and she failed to examine herself, she is tahor. If the time for her fixed period arrived and she did not examine herself, she is tameh. Reb Meir said if she was in a hiding place and the time for her fixed period arrived and she did not examine herself, she is tahor because terror suspends the discharge of blood. However, during the days of Azava, when one who is observing a day of free of discharge against the day of which she discharged blood, they are presumed to be tameh. All women become contaminated once the contaminating flow is in the outer room.
Hold on. You skipped something. It's Hey Aleph we're looking at. Yotzei Dofen.
Daled Vav. Oh, wait. What did?
We're looking for Hey Aleph.
Okay, I'm sorry, I skipped. Okay. Never did see it. Okay. Concerning a child who emerges from its mother through the abdominal wall, the mother does not deserve on account of the days of Tumah and the days of Tahara, and is not liable on account of its offering. But Reb Shimon says this child is like a naturally born child. All women become contaminated once the contaminating flow is in the outer room, for it is stated her discharge from her flesh brings blood. But Azav and one who emitted semen do not become contaminated until the tumor exits to the outside of their bodies.
Okay. Horus.
Right. Okay, base tests. A female animal born by cesarean section and the one that follows it, Reb Tarfon says, both must be left to pasture until they develop blemishes and they are be eaten with their blemish by their owner. Reb Akiva says neither one is a Bechor, the first because it did not open the womb, and the second because it was preceded by another. Um, if one buys an animal from a non-Jew and it is not known whether he had born its first offspring or not, Rabbi Israel says the offspring of a goat in its first year certainly belongs to a Kohen. From here on, it is questionable. The offspring of a ewe is in the second year, certainly belongs to a Kohen. From here, it is unquestionable. The offspring of a cow or donkey in its third year certainly belongs to a Kohen. From here on, it's questionable. Rabbi Akiva said to him, if offspring alone would exempt the animal, it would be as you say. But they said the sign of the offspring in small livestock is a womb discharge and a live, live, large livestock in ammonite sac, and a woman in an embryo in an ammonite sac. This is the rule. With any animal known to have previously born its first, the Kohen receives nothing. And with anyone that has not born its first, this first male offspring belongs to the Kohen. If it is questionable, it may be eaten in blemished state by its owner. If Elias ben Yaakov says if a large livestock animal discharges a mass of congealed blood, it must be buried and is exempt from the laws of Bechor. Shimon ben Gamil says if one buys a nursing animal from a non-Jew, he need not suspect that it was the offspring of another animal. If he entered among his flock and saw that those that had just born for the first time were nursing, and that those that had previously given birth were nursing as well, he need not suspect that the offspring of this one came to that one, or the offspring of that one came to this one. Okay.
Okay.
Um, let me see. Well, Sota. Okay. Sota. Test Yud Aleph. From when the time that Sanhedrin was abolished, song was abolished from the banquet halls. As it is stated, with the song they will not drink wine. When the early prophets died, the Urim and Thummim ceased. When the temple was destroyed, there disappeared the shaman worm and the spoon honey, and there ceased to be any faithful men, as it is stated, save Hashem, for the devout ones is no more. Reb Shimon Gamliel says in the name of Reb Yeshua, from the day the temple was destroyed, there was no day without its curse. The dew has not fallen, and blessing and favor has been removed from the fruits. Reb Yossi says the riches have also been lost from the fruits. Reb Shimon Elazar says the cessation of the hara caused the loss of flavor and aroma. The cessation of the tithes caused the loss of the riches of the grain, and the sages say promiscuity and sorcery brought us an end to all.
Okay. Tomorrow we're going to finish Sota and start Gittin.
Gittin. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Have a great
Every
day.
day.
Talking about a big strike or something tomorrow or something? Sunday?
Next week, whatever political stuff.
Uh,
Okay.
all
All right.
right.